Very good afternoon, everybody. Bharani Arol. I'm the president of HICIA, and it's a pleasure to welcome everybody to this particular webinar on COVID-19 related labor and employment law issues. Well, I think you all know the importance of this particular topic, and already we could understand with the overwhelming response we got that how important it is in the current context. Mr. Radhakrishna Murthy Garu is known to many of us. He's been very supportive of ICA initiatives, and he's done a lot of webinars and of course, in-person seminars on this topic a couple of times. And we're very glad to have him today. And you all know that, this is very trying times for us and employers particularly, and of course, employees too, because it's affecting their livelihoods. So employers, I'm sure they just do respect the fact that we're all law-abiding than law-breaking. And this forum, we could certainly leverage to be able to seek information and legal guidance on how employers should address the COVID-19 impact, right? Particularly with the businesses and the employees as it is continuing to evolve and, grow. So I think, make use of this time and please do ask a lot of questions, and we have enough time to be able to deliberate and, address this issue. Thank you very much. And I welcome Mr. Radhakrishna Murthy and
thank you.
Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Srinivas Rao will be kind of the moderating session. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Bharani. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Srini. I run the operations for HICIA. I also have my colleague Nirja on the panel today, and welcome Murthy Garu. Thanks for being with us. So while people are still getting into the webinar room, before we get to the specifics of the session, I just want to reiterate a couple of hygiene points about Zoom itself, on which we are conducting this event. This is our 5th webinar ever since we launched HICIA's Net series. We already do a tech series, biz series, we do a leadership workshop. This is the 4th HICIA initiative, and we are doing the 4th workshop. Now, quickly, in the past few weeks, we have heard some concerns. We all have seen, thanks to social media, that Zoom is not safe, not secure, etc., etc. But I want to assure all the people on the call today, HICIA members, non-members, whoever is attending, that we have done our due diligence. HICIA has taken a properly priced 500 user license. So today, actually, we have more than 500 registrations, So anticipating this kind of a surge only, we went for a proper license, okay? And clarifying some of the concerns, we sent out a mailer yesterday. And we are also taking the Union Government, Ministry of Home Affairs guidelines very seriously. We are implementing them. Things like locking the webinar room after 10-15 minutes into the session, compulsorily introducing a password, So all these were mentioned in the mailer yesterday, And we'll continue to monitor. We understand as an association, Technology Industry Association, the concerns. At any point of time, and we also, if you notice that very global and bigger associations like NASSCOM and TIE are also very comfortably using Zoom across the world for their sessions. So at this point of time, my point is we don't see a major concern. It doesn't mean that we are ignorant of the fact. We are monitoring. At any point of time, we feel the need to move to a different software, we will do so, That's HICIA's assurance to all of you. And now coming to this current topic, it's a hot topic, like Bharani said. Everybody is hit, businesses are hit, employees are hit. Question is, how do we survive? So that we can, we survive today so that we can prosper another day, okay? So, but that survival has to happen by aligning with the law of the land and not by cutting corners or, doing anything that is illegal. So that's the key message. So Mr. Murthy here is well known. Those of you who are familiar with HICIA over the years would have attended his sessions in the past also. I would call him a rock star lawyer, okay? I think because of the depth and detail to which he goes. So today we have about 90 minutes. We'll see what we can fit into that. There will be a set of questions that I'll be posing to Mr. Murthy and he will answer, okay? And just for some of you who are unfamiliar, Mr. Radhakrishna Murthy is a practicing advocate in the erstwhile combined High Court of AP, and now predominantly he practices in the Telangana High Court, okay, into both original and appellate jurisdiction. He also has a corporate legal consultant and advisor since 1987. His core competency is in the area of industrial and labor laws with strategic industrial relations and human resources, management. He's also a member of the AP, and I'm assuming now Telangana Minimum Wages Board Rationalization Committee, representing employers on behalf of the Federation of Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and member of IR and HR Committee of Federation of Andhra Pradesh Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I'm assuming I was just asking him wherever it is Andhra Pradesh, obviously he works for both the states, and predominantly he's based out of Hyderabad. So Murthy garu, thanks for joining us today. And I will go through a set of questions, kind of sequenced set of questions. But before we start with that, any opening observations briefly you want to tell our audience today? We have nearly 300 people already on board, so please.
Thank you, Bharani garu, and thank you, Mr. Srini and Neeraj garu. And hearty congratulations to Bharani garu for recent election for this guest position. And definitely under your leadership, you will take it forward. And as far regards this COVID-19, it is unforeseen situation, which nobody could expect it that it would happen. Usually industries will always have a up and down, be it a IT industry, be it a manufacturing core or whatever it is. And that will be a temporary where you can at least have an estimation or presume that it is for certain time. But this is the present situation is such which is uncertain, which we are not aware when the things would be set right and when everything. Somebody says 6 months, somebody says 1 year, we don't know. It is only a speculation and not a reality. We can't exactly know. Usually, normally, there is any impact or any other natural calamity to a particular part of the globe, but it is across the globe. That is why it is pandemic than to be called as an epidemic. This is the present situation, and it will have a lot of impact, a cascading impact on the industry, any industry for that matter. And I can say it is only we are at the beginning, and the lockdown lifting is not ending the COVID. It is, we are in the journey, and one has to live with that until unless a vaccine is found and a permanent solution is found. And as long as people living with that, there will be certain posed problems are there, and it will have impact on the business operations as well. Now coming to the employee relations, which is the topic today, that how to maintain the balance. Same time, the employer should not get affected by the employee. By the same time, employee also should not get affected. For the employer also, it is not a prepared. It is unprepared, unforeseen situation like the employee. Like the employee got their own commitments, employer do have their own commitments and the liabilities and other things. So both has to work together with mutual trust and respect on each other. And then only there will be an industry and it would be a win-win situation. Then it would help the survival of the industry, and the job of the employee exists only when the industry exists. So it is mutually equally important. The survival of the industry is important. Survival of the employee is also equally important at this hour. One has to work together. Another thing I say, legal, illegal is the secondary aspect to run an organization. Basic aspect is the trust. Basic aspect is understanding each other, arriving at a consensus. Then it can successfully run. And no amount of law, yesterday I have seen where in using the employers do say that the government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs has imposed a condition. The Noida, some of the industries, they do express. We said, sir, we can't afford to pay. We paid the March salaries, but we could not pay the April salaries. Then what about the price? We are prepared, sir, what to do when we don't have money. Had we had money, we would. Otherwise, what to do? So it is pushing to the wall. But at the same time, employees also have their own commitments, their own responsibilities, social responsibilities, family responsibilities. That is why I always say for both the employers and employees, I appeal, being human is more important than to be human being. everything has to be first looked into from the perception of the human being, human relation, than the legal aspects. But by the same time, law of the land is the law of the land. One has to complete. There is no other go. By the same time, employees also should understand that to what extent it is possible, to what extent it is not possible. There are various means and other things, because for every problem, there won't be a key, there won't be a lock without key. Key is bound to be there. So we should work out for that a solution. And our problems are our lessons are our guiding points. And we all in the process, we should learn many more things in it. It is a challenge not only for the employer, challenge for the employees, that has to be worked out. And all the participants, I request you, what all queries you have. And we have certain queries normally and generally being raised in this COVID situation from the employers that has been taken, from the employees also has been taken. This apart, you might be having certain things that you can put it, and to the extent possible, if the time permits, you will definitely answer, or otherwise, and we can revert back to you. This is the situation, and the new mode of working, like work from home and other realignment of work, readjustment of work, and so on and so forth. So many things will now crop up that we have to see, and we will answer in the course of our session, because now we got to start our session.
Thanks, Mr. Murthy.
It's over to Mr. Singh.
Yeah. So I will start. The first question itself is a heavy question. I think the business is tough. Clients are also worldwide closing down, and India, our IT industry depends a lot on US and Western world. So therefore, when there is no revenue, any business looks to cut the cost down. And this industry, majority of the cost is people cost. So the first question is, what are the legal obligations of employers in respect of payment of wages during lockdown period? Now, if I read the underlying real question, if I am an employer, can I legally afford not to pay wages? That seems to be the question. Yeah. But the way it is framed is, what are the legal obligations of an employer, of a company, in respect of payment of wages during the lockdown period?
It's a good question, Mr. Srini. The thing is that there's a well saying, where there are no new earnings, our savings are our earnings.
Yeah.
Cost cutting is the earning. Where you know the no margin.
Correct.
And similarly, even your customers looking for the price cut. It is not that you look for the salary cut. It is your vendors, your customers, everybody, they will be looking for the price cut. This is the situation because which is affected, and the company also has to follow austerity methods to save wherever it is possible. And as Mr. Srini had rightly said, that the IT industry, unlike manufacturing, the major cost is the manpower. The major cost is that. Now, as far as the GOs are concerned, are the government orders that are issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs from time to time under the provisions of the Disaster Management Act and as well as the Epidemic Diseases Act, is that they have been saying time and again repeatedly the full wages to be paid to the employee during the lockdown period, no laying off, no termination, full wages to be paid and other things. But yet, despite of all these GOs, and somebody raised a question, whether the basic can be paid, whether basic and DA can be paid, whether the minimum wage can be complied, rest can be deferred, or whether 50% can be paid now, 50% can we waive it off, and certain say that 50% can be deferred, and we pay as and when the financial position improves, and we are now intention to avoid the payment. Intentions are not bad, circumstances are bad. Circumstances are bad. This is the scenario, this is the situation at present the employer is facing upon. But as far as the liability in respect and obligation in respect of the Payment of Wages Act, payment of wages, the government stipulates a condition that full wages to be paid. March also full wages to be paid, and April also the full wages to be paid. The full wages has to be paid, and there is no exemption given. And the other doubts, if they have anything 50% and the DA basic and all, no, it is not. When the government said full means full only. But again, this has been challenged before the Supreme Court by certain of the employers saying that it is the beyond the paying capacity, beyond the affordability, and nobody should be pushed to the wall. And this is the difficult situation. Supreme Court only ordered notice for the central government to file a counter, and they did not pass any interim order. Until unless the orders passed by the government are stayed or suspended, the liability is like that only with the employer in respect of the payment of wages.
Okay. So basically, you are saying as of now, until Supreme Court decides something or the other, nothing changes. The government is insisting full wages to be paid. There is no other definition of any part wages or can be paid. Okay, so that's good to know. Now moving on, the next question, and there is a linked question to that also, is whether employer can lay off employees during lockdown and post-lockdown period. Okay, and then there is a question down somewhere which says, what is the legal procedure for layoff? Now, again, there seems to be a pain in the industry that, okay, we are facing an unprecedented situation, a pandemic, an epidemic. And if government is using an Epidemic Act of 1897 to suddenly take a lot of powers and do a lot of things, right? All the lockdowns and other things, okay? Similarly, such a big pandemic, does it give any leeway to the employers to just lay off people without following the normal process? Or can they not do that? So what is the process to be followed? I think for layoff, that's the two questions I'm combining here, whether employer can lay off employees and what is the legal procedure for the layoff?
Yes, Mr. Srini, as far as laying off is concerned, during the lockdown period, it is totally prohibited. Removal, termination, laying off, any such thing is totally prohibited. Lockdown at present is being continued up to 17th as per the central government orders, and 29th, I think, of the state government. During this lockdown period, laying off is totally prohibited. Okay. After lifting of the lockdown, laying off is a different meaning again. As far as the ITES industry is concerned, laying off means severance of employment, termination, dismissal or retrenchment, whatever it is. But when it comes to the manufacturing, laying off means temporarily not able to provide work. It is not a permanent layoff. So, as when it comes to the ITES, because now we are concerned about mostly in today's program, ITES, layoff means it is nothing but severance of employment. The severance of employment, again, there are two categories of employees as per law. The first category of employees who comes under the definition of workman. The other category is who is excluded from the definition of workman, who is employed in the supervisory and managerial capacity. And the one who got the supervisory and managerial powers like sanctioning of leave, recommendation of leave, sanctioning of increment, performance appraisal, recruitment, retrenchment, so on and so forth, and entrustment of work, supervision of work, these are all exempted from the definition of workmen. And their service conditions are governed as per the contract between the employer and employee. That is, as per their appointment letter or the agreement or anything, as per as the non-workman. As far as the workman is concerned, their services are governed as per the laws, be it a Shops and Establishment Act, be it an Industrial Dispute Act, they are governed. There is a procedure for layoff that has been laid down. Layoff in the sense I am using, because ITES layoff only I am speaking, not that. So it is a termination. It is a termination and severance of employment. So that is the procedure is concerned. You have to follow the procedure of last come first go. And in each category, there may be 10 junior software engineers, there may be analysts, there may be junior analysts. In the software industry, mostly there is a myth that there are no workmen, all are non-workmen. It is not by nature of dress or right. We can't call it as a blue collar, white collar. Blue collar and white collar are the management terms. These are not the legal terms. And as long as any employee is not discharging the duties of supervisory and managerial nature, as I said now, he falls under the definition of workman. Whatever nomenclature, whatever definition, some IT companies call it as a consultant, a junior consultant, or senior consultant. Some call analyst, junior analyst, or business analyst, or software developer, programmer, or development engineer, or so on and so forth. All these designations are being given: associate, junior associate, senior associate, or technical assistant, or whatever it is. But they all come under the definition of workman, where we got to follow category-wise seniority. We have to look into it. In that, the junior most can be retrenched, and the senior most employment has to be protected. That is one aspect. And as per that, the retrenchment compensation to be paid at the rate of 15 days wages for every complete year of service. In the absence of payment of retrenchment compensation, such layoff that retrenchment is null and void and it is not maintainable under the provisions of law. Another thing, Mr. Srini, it is relevant today to bring it to the notice of the participants because of the recent High Court judgment. Many are under the impression that the total provisions of the Shops and Establishment Act is not applicable. And no need to pay compensation, no need to, and an appeal under the Shop Act doesn't maintain, is not maintainable before the Labor Department. Labor Department doesn't have control over the termination of the employee. That's what that judgment. But that is as per the law that was existing in the combined state.
Okay. Okay.
Now, after bifurcation in the year 2019, our government has brought a new GO in place of the earlier GOs. In that new GO, section 47 is not there. It is the section 47 which enabling the provision discussing and envisages respect of procedure for termination. So that is applicable as on today. Until again it is specifically accepted that all procedure to be followed. Another thing is that as you have rightly said that we have to maintain the balance between the employer and employee. We have to win-win situation. What I can say that you better pursue the employee and what work you have earlier, what work the employer is not having, what is the workforce, the talent that is required, what is the excess, how to realign the work that has to be looked into and has to be employee need to be, they have to speak one-to-one basis, ways and means has to be found out. It is better to rather imposing law and terminate you at this juncture where it is under crisis and everybody is under cancer. It is better to pursue one-to-one, convince them, look at their convenience to certain point of to a certain extent, and win over them. And imposing law and exercising provision under the law and terminating is your outer winner. There are two things called, one is the respect, other one is a fear. Law is accepted out of fear. And your person is accepted out of respect. So it is better to have one-to-one employees, the discussion between one-to-one, the boss and subordinate, convince the situation, convince what are the expectations of the workman, perseverance of employment, for him to get alternative employment, win over the employer, win over the employee, and can go for severance post-law.
Okay. Actually, I'll come to that, Mr. Murthy, but to simplify what you said relating to the question, if someone gets classified as a workman, like an individual contributor is what our industry calls IC, then the workman compensation and termination process is to be followed, right? Yes. If one wants to lay off or terminate. And if the person is a supervisory role, then the mutual employment contract between the employee and employer is to be followed. In either case, either that or this has to be followed. There is no other way one can be simply laid off. That, just because there is a lockdown or there is a pandemic or whatever it is.
Right? Giving a letter and saying goodbye doesn't work.
Okay. Now, the last point latching on to that, there are a couple of questions that are there which says, can a company redefine the scope of the work, okay, from the original employment offer or whatever, redefine the role, reduce the scope, and therefore reduce the pay? Let's say somebody is getting 1 lakh now, I can say you only do 1, 2, 3, half the things, your lot of responsibilities are reduced. So I will now only pay you 50,000. Is such a arrangement, both in the pay and in the benefits, is it possible to be reached between an employer and an employee, in the current circumstances?
First thing is that the realignment of work, am I right?
Yeah, realignment of work. Right.
Normally, the IT industries will be having a billable hours or 8 hours working, 9 hours working because you work 5-day week, 9 hours you're working. Suppose whether the industry can give a choice to the employees to opt part-time work as against full-time work. There are certain industries which did introduce in other part of the globe, not in India, to my knowledge, at least maybe in India, saying that if the employee can opt 25% of what the present work what he is doing, If he works for 25% of work, he will get 30% payment. If he works 50% work, he will get 60% payment. If he works 75, he will get 80% payment. He will get 100 work. So rather, because to overcome this difficulty of surplus employment and lack of business and the orders, if the employees can arrive at a consensus and after reducing the number of hours, it would accommodate more and more number of employees. Protects them. It is always better, half employment is better than nil employment.
Can this be done unilaterally by the employer, or it has to be done in
No,
discussion with the employer?
it can't be done unilaterally by the employee because you have already given an employment. Though the non-workman category is governed as per the contract, even the workman category is governed for that. They will also have an appointment letter. When the offer was given, you are given for full-time offer. Where the full-time offer is given, unilaterally cannot be now imposed. I am reducing your working hour from 8 hours to 4 hours tomorrow onwards. It has to be with the mutual consent, at least by a way of a correspondence, intra-mail, electronic correspondence, seeking consent through intra-mail also, or addressing an individual mail and seeking consent. With the consent of the employee, he should also given time. He should not that next half an hour, 1 hour you come back to me. Otherwise, I shall presume that you have accepted and I am imposing. It should not be. At least some time may be given to them to think and revert back to work. Because it says justice not only be done, it should seem to have been done. So in that process, better to give time to those people, better make such propositions post-lockdown and arrive at an understanding. Before introducing that, you also have to address the employees. This is the situation. This is what the surplus employment. And if the surplus employment to be removed, this many would be displaced. And we feel proposed to protect, like the employer is coming forward to accommodate. You among themselves, a fellow employee should help the other fellow employee. I have 5 colleagues and 2 are out of work now. We got work. And each one of us share the work and give the consent to the employer. As long as employers, we deliver the results in what way is concerned. The cost remains same for the employees.
Right.
For 3, whatever the cost he gets, for 5, he is getting the same cost. So employer also, it would be a win-win situation. I think it is the high time. Now both the employees also from this perception has to think and help.
Okay.
That is one aspect. The other aspect is that pay reduction, Mr. Srini, the other aspect what we have asked in this. Okay. Yeah. The other aspect what you have asked is that pay reduction. That is the thing is that in the contract already you have agreed to pay certain things. TTC, annual pay compensation benefits, everything is agreed. Now it cannot be unilaterally reduced. But the law, as per law, minimum wage is the statutory right. Over and above minimum wage, that is fair wage and living wage, there is no statutory right. It is only contractual obligation as agreed under the appointment letter. So you have agreed to pay 5 lakhs per annum, 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs or 60 lakhs per annum, which you can't reduce. Now with the consent of the employee, you can reduce while maintaining the minimum wage. Another thing I tell you, suppose in the event in the appointment letter at the beginning itself had the employer put any or incorporated any clause that owing to the recession, owing to the reasons of economy and convenience, owing to unforeseen circumstances, if the employer can't afford to pay the salary and compensation what is agreed under this, the employer has every liberty to reduce the compensation, which shall not be not more than %.
Okay.
At the beginning itself, in the appointment letter, if such a condition is put and the employee gives his acceptance, then you can do it because you have already taken consent at the threshold.
But generally, many employment contracts will have some clause or the other which says all these are subject to revision based on the business performance, etc., etc. Can the company take advantage of that clause? Because when the things are good, companies pay more. Every year there is a hike. So quoting the same thing, when things are not good, can a company say, things are not good, I am no business, and employment offer says that I can revise it. So now I am revising it down by 40% or 50%. Is that doable?
Yes, this is a good question. Revision means only upwards, not downwards.
Okay. Okay.
When it comes to the interpretation of statutes, interpretation of words and phrases, a revision is used for upwards, not for the downwards, certainly. And until unless the clause is specific and scoping, assuming, presuming, under assumptions, surmises, and conjectures, we should not do such thing until unless it is specifically unambiguously written that owing to the reasons of economy, the employer cannot afford to pay the wages so offered in the annex area, the employer shall have every liberty to reduce the wage, your present wage or the revised wage from time to time from cut up to 30% or 40% and not more than that. Where he gives consent, then you can do it. But let us not, we can't assume that because it is a revision. Another thing is that second question in that coming, you can ask about the increment part of it, appraisal part of it, that I will answer at that point of time when it comes to the revision. How shall I answer now? That way.
No, I think I will try to cover another thing, which is, I think, coming up in the chat windows also, which I better ask now. This is a first temptation, right? Every manager has about leave. There is a lot of accumulated leave, right, for most employees. Okay. So can I persuade the employee to go on a compulsory leave, or can I adjust the accumulated leave against this period? Therefore, my leave liability goes off, in the books, and I don't have to really pay cash now. Are such things possible to do?
Yes, yes. This is the question according to me last 1.5 years, because I deal with several corporates and all. And when I got about 100 calls, 90 calls belongs to this leave. And I tell you as per law, first legally I can tell you. As per law, leave is the right of an employee. Availing or non-availing leave is the choice of the employee. Sanctioning or not sanctioning is the right of the employer. So, sanctioning and refusal of leave, rejection of leave is under the exclusive domain of the employer. Availing leave is under the exclusive domain of the employee. So, employer cannot force the employee, you apply your leave, or whether employee applying leave or not, employer suo motu on his own, debiting to the credit of the account of the employee, leave account of the employee. Suppose if there are about 30 leaves to the credit of the account of the leave account of the employee suo motu on his own, debiting it, such is not permissible under law. And anyway, during the lockdown period, there is a strictly post-lockdown period. If the employer and employee arrives at a consensus, again, it is a win-win situation. It should be mutual and reciprocal, but should not be unilateral.
Okay.
If both arrive at a consensus,
every company has a policy that you should consume your leave before, let's say, December 31st or something. That's as per the normal policy of the company. That is normally followed, right? If you don't consume it, is lapsed or something like that. But what you are saying is, I can't like prepone that consumption and say you consume it now. I can't do that unless I reach a mutual agreement with the employee. If the employee is willing to consider that, then fine. Otherwise, as an employer, I can't unilaterally do that.
Another thing is that normally the total leaves are clubbed together, but under the shops and establishment under which the IT, ITES industries is covered, there are casual leaves, there are errand leaves, there are sick leaves. And suppose beyond these leaves, if the employer is giving extra leaves as per the contract, that you can negotiate. As far as the casual leaves are concerned, that has to be encashed in the same year, they can't be carried forward. Sick leave will not be carried forward. Only the leave that carries forward to the credit of the account of the employees, only errand leave. That maximum accumulation is permissible only up to 60. Beyond that, 60 automatically gets lapsed. Okay, as per the contract, one can arrive.
Okay. Now, one other situation we are observing, Mr. Murthy, is many big companies have engaged contractors, who are not full-time employees, but it's another company who brings their people and make them work. So in this case, I think the main company is called the principal place of work, or whatever is the legal term. And there is a contractor, and the employees actually are on the payroll of the contractor. Now there's the main principal employer terminates the contract, let's say, as per the contract terms only, by giving a 1 week notice or a 1 month notice. The whole purpose of the contracting, as you know, is to give me the flexibility of ramp up and ramp down rather than having them on my rolls. So when they terminate, who is legally, and then because this contract is gone, that other guy also terminates the employees, who is legally liable now? Is it the bigger company that engaged, or is it the outsourced company that has actually the people on their rolls?
It's not that. Mr. Seni is the right question and very good question. It is not the question of big and small, like we come across in the road accident, if the car hits the bike and car is
big and small may be a wrong word, but you know, the main and outsourced. Yeah, let me put it that way. Yeah.
I got it. Basically, these contracts are categorized into two sorts of contracts broadly. One is a contract for service, the other one is a contract of service. Contract for service is a business contract. Contract of service is an employment contract. The first business contract, the contract for service, the IT company and its vendor will have the contract for service, business contract.
Right.
In this business contract, again, two modes. One thing is that employees work at the vendor's place only, not at the place of the client. And they raise invoice according to the billable hours they are being paid or reimbursed or whatever it is, that is. And the other mode is that their employees, the vendor employees, comes and sit in the office of the client's office at work. Client office at work. Strictly speaking, it comes under the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act, but these people has to follow the procedure like taking license and all. Usually it is not being followed. It is only a contract between the principal to principal only, but not principal to principal, but not from the principal to the agent or the contractor. That is how the IT/ITES Industries contract takes place, according to my knowledge. So it is the vendor's liability, I mean, basically, and if at all his services are terminated or retrenched and other things, it is the vendor who is responsible for violation or compliance of law. But in respect of the wages, as long as the employee is working in your organization, vendor's employee working with the client being the principal employer, jointly and severally liable only for the wages, but not for the termination or retrenchment or retrenchment compensation or gratuity.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
For the wages period, for the period worked.
Okay. But the moment the principal employer terminates the business contract with the vendor, okay,
there is a severance of contract.
Severance of contract. The principal employer's liability is no longer there. It's the vendor's liability now.
Vendor has to recall all his employees. But the thing is that again the legal documentation should be perfect. Whenever the vendor deputes his employee to the client's place, he should submit a deployment letter. And the deployment is only purely temporary, and the deployment exists as long as the contract between him and the principal employer is not terminated. The moment it is terminated, by default, his right of entry to the client's place is seized, and there will not be any relationship between the client and this employee. Such deployment letter has to be specifically given in writing, because I always tell to everyone, one and all, tons of oral evidence is equivalent to ounce of documentary evidence. Documentation should be important everywhere.
Right. Now, I want to go back to one observation you made. Looks like, as per you, several things are possible if only the employer and employees sit together and reach some kind of a consensus, right? You said you use the word win over the employees, right? Give them sufficient time to think over, either winning over them for kind of convincing them to accept a pay cut, convincing them to take a lesser role, Now, again, the last comment you made of keep everything in writing. Let's say this employee gives an email or a letter back to the employer saying that, okay, I hereby agree to forego 50% of my salary, whatever it is, etc. Then he changes his mind. And if the matter unfortunately ends up in a court of law, okay, will this and he says, I gave either that under some duress or something like that. How is the employer's position? Is this all, these emails, will they hold ground in a court of law? or will they be valid in front of a judge? How serious are these?
The courts time and again in the judgments also said a service of someone through WhatsApp also amounts to service of someone through the now the media. The mode of communication is developing day by day, and I always say to be overcautious in the appointment letter also when it comes to the service of notices, etc. We also say that any communication that is served either in writing or through email or through any electronic correspondence or through WhatsApp shall be deemed to have been valid service and shall be binding upon the employee. We will be putting in the class. Then any conveyance of acceptance given through email also equally binding, which can't be taken back. What is a contract? Contract is an offer and acceptance. According to me, where you put an individual mail, give sufficient time. When you give back time, when he gets back to you, giving his consent, and later he can't change his mind. Of course, as far as the going to the court is concerned, when the court go to court, they can convert anything to anything. Be it a coercion, undue influence, or what. But you have the evidence that where you have corresponded the mail, where he gave his consent. If you want to have a doubly proof, you can have generated or printed copy, scan it, sign it, and see it. The digital signature is also nowadays offer letters, everything. Also, you can send your offer by digitally signing, and he can also give his acceptance by digital signing. The digital document can be preserved, and that would be after he changes his mind. Also, we have a good defense, and no one can say that he can't go to court. For anything, they can go to court. They can say anything, build anything, convert anything to anything, give any color to the fair acceptance to that of the coercion. It all depends how they plead the case. But court, you will have evidence, sufficient ample evidence. That is why documentary evidence. Digital signature, you can take it. And another thing is that first you have used that I agree for the pay reduction. Am I right?
Right.
So let us go in a positive way, not in a negative way. We will not call it as a negative way. I am agreeing for the reduction. I am agreeing for 50% work. I convey my unequivocal acceptance to pay proportionately.
Okay.
Rather to say that I am reducing work. Earlier I was working for 8 hours and even the company gives you are working at present 8 hours as per the contract between you and the company. Now company is proposing you that there are certain schemes for working for 3 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, out of which you can accept anything. If you work for this many hours, you will get this much pay. You are requested to think about it and revert back to us on or before such and such a date. By digitally signing your communicating your acceptance, then you can say that we are not saying anywhere reducing. You will be paid proportionately. Then you would also say, yes, I agree for working for this and I accordingly agree for the payment that is proposed proportion to my working hours.
Got it. Okay. Good. I'll run through some other questions. Then we move on to a lot of questions are piling up in the chat window and Q&A. I'll come to that. For all of you who are posting, just allow me to wrap up some of the other questions. One, now offer letters issued to fresh recruits and campus recruits, can they be recalled? Now, can on the same tone, can any other offer letter that is issued, can it be recalled? Or can the date of joining be postponed, indefinitely or by a certain time? What is the position of law on these things?
Yes, it's a good question, Mr. Srini, but the thing is that mostly by this time the COVID wrapped up and other things, offers were already given for many companies, by many companies for the campus selections or whatever it is. Or offers were given to the lateral hires, we have placed their notice over there and what to join over here. It is two types of offer. One type of offer is for the freshers. The other type of offer is that the talent acquisition during the course of the business, where you have already selected, looking at the projections of the business. Suddenly this occurred, where they have placed their papers and awaiting and serving the notice period and await to join you. So first we will discuss about the campus offers.
Okay.
For the freshers. It can't be blanketly said that we can defer or we can cancel, recall. It can't be said because again it is depending on the terms and conditions of the offer. Everything. strictly legally speaking, what I'm saying. Until unless it is so clearly written in the offer that it is only a provisional selection and your date of joining will be shall. However, your date of joining can be deferred or postponed owing to the unforeseen circumstances or for any reasons. Until unless we put such a saving clause, or we can say that owing to unforeseen circumstances or any other reason, the offer so given stands cancelled. The employer shall have every liberty to cancel. You, until unless you specifically put that clause, it cannot be unilaterally. A lot or otherwise, for everything is a win-win situation. As I always say, being human is more important than to be the human being. You can call the individuals or virtual discussion over a phone to phone, and you can defer it basing on them and seek the consent also. If they are willing to, they give the consent. If they have the other offer, they go. And they can be given some time to think and revert back to us. That way it can be closed. That is as far as the process is concerned.
Okay.
When it comes to the lateral hires, where they have already placed papers and they would be relieved, even that company also now feels that the burden is better.
Right.
So he should not be on the crossroads, the employee. So already you have committed. The contractual obligation is conferred. So it is only possible by mutual discussion and arriving at a consensus, but unilaterally that offer given cannot be cancelled.
So the key point, Mr. Murthy, is by the offer letter itself constitutes the initiation of a contractual obligation, right? Is that what you are saying? It's not necessary that the employee has to join here, sign a joining report and become part of the payroll. Then only the contractual obligation kicks in. No, you are saying the moment I issue an offer letter, my contractual obligation kicks in.
Well said, Mr. Singh. You have elaborately, in simple way, you have put it. The moment we give what is the contract is the offer and acceptance. We gave our offer, he conveyed his acceptance and to join.
Okay.
That is a contract. It is like agreement of sale and execution of sale.
Okay. Okay.
Sale deed and agreement of sale.
Okay. I think, yeah. I think with our real estate mindset, probably it's more easy to understand. Okay.
More easy, because every employee purchased some plot or the other employer also purchased. Yeah. So they enter into basically he agreed to sell and the other one agreed to purchase. Right. Final taking place, that is execution of sale.
Right.
That is that.
Now I have a very interesting and very relevant question. With now 95% of the workforce working from home, what are the legal obligations of a company or of an employer towards the employees? They are no longer working in their premises. They are not using their cafeteria, their lifts, their workspaces, desks, nothing. They are now in their homes. So what happens to the legal obligation? Do they increase? Do they decrease? Do they change? Today there is another article I saw that NASSCOM is taking up something on this front. So I didn't get time to read it fully. So anything a little bit on this, can you just throw some light?
Mr. Srini, this work from home concept is there in existence and came in existence only after the ITES came. Prior to that, the work from home concept was not there. And it is being followed in some of the service sector wherever it is possible. And there is no legislation today, the governing law about the work from home aspects and the service conditions of the employees who work from home. Another thing is that though working from home, it can't be said that he is not an employee of the company, because even sitting at home, he does the company's job only. He continues to be employee, he continues to be on roll, and employer continues to have the same obligations with respect to service conditions and payment of wages and other things at the same time. Only thing then. Another thing is that is to be looked into it. So another aspect that is, suppose if the internet is not properly working, if it doesn't have internet facility, or he got the internet facility for which the company is not paying, whether owing to such difficulty is not able to log in and work for certain hours, whether to be paid wages for that purpose or not, because it is neither the fault of the employer nor the part of the fault of the employee, because the net is not. Whether the net not working is a real one or a created one, it's all one-to-one trust basis. It has to basing on the responsibility that is to be looked into, because several questions we come across. The same liability continues to be there, and only in one case where I read it is a foreign case, not an Indian case, where the employee is working from home and she got an electric shock while working from home. and the employer was asked to pay the compensation because it is a accident in the course of employment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think you got my point. Accident in the participants also might got the point that the accident. So such law is not there, but that all again comes to the interpretation when a case arises. There is no such precedent now. We have to see. Now NASCOM, as we have rightly said, that is reported a news item today in the Academic Times. They are approaching the government to bring certain changes in the laws, to grant certain exemptions, and work from home also to frame certain rules in respect of work from home. And now the IT industries also has to think about it. What are the service conditions that can be imposed before we approaching that can also be discussed. Be that as it may, whether the government brings the legislation or not, IT industries in the coming years, in the appointment and employment contracts, they can impose certain conditions.
Okay.
Anything offer under legislation is one part that will take time. Okay, they issue GO ordinance. Ordinance is valid for 6 months. Later, it has to be converted into the bill and act, so on and so forth, and then discussion. But the employer also can create a contractual obligations besides legal obligations.
Okay. So until such changes happen, if I'm hearing you, for now nothing changes. Right?
No, nothing.
Whatever legal obligations the employer has towards the employee,
whether he's working in the organization, working from home, or
the same thing continues.
Because the same attachment is there, the dual relationship of employer and employee exists.
Now, flipping that, taking the employment contract, suppose if somebody is working from home, working in office, but don't deliver their job properly, their performance is poor, then the employer can take suitable action after a proper process, right? But now somebody is working from home, like you said, internet connection. It could be some other distraction. It could be that my chair is not good. It could be that I am in a crowded apartment. I am not able to deliver my 8 hours. My productivity is down to only 4 hours. Can the employer now say, look, you have not met your obligations as an employee, so your performance is now gone down. And therefore, I'm rating you poor and it's eventually leading to a exit or whatever. Are these things possible?
Yeah, when you give a facility, normally nowhere, anywhere, anybody committed in the appointment letter so far that they will be given work from home. Only thing is that as per the mutual understanding, it is being given from time to time. Now, in view of the present situation, earlier anything can be affordable by the employer, somehow or the other. Now the situation is every penny and every pie is counted. Under these circumstances, it is valuable. And now you can give a fresh letter as a subsidiary to the earlier appointment letter while giving working from home. And these are your responsibilities. You have to take care and you have to deliver. And the payment shall be according to the billable hours.
Excellent. I think I wish everybody is hearing this carefully.
Now they can give a supplementary letter imposing conditions. They give their consent. So they also take care of the proper internet or whatever it is. If not there, suppose 11 to 12 my net is not working or power is not there, there is no substitute for the power and all. I can work another 1 hour further. If it permits, then compensate it. Not that looking at the clock and calendar, 5 is over, I am logged in during this time and that is not working, what am I to do? That is fine. So you can give always, subject to these conditions, you can work from home, otherwise come to office.
Because now we are, from yesterday, the government has allowed 33% return to office, although companies are going very cautiously.
Yeah. So those you can now choose the option from the employee. Rather you say you work from home, you come to office, you work from home. Seek individual option from the employee. Whoever opts work from home, you say under these conditions, you are subject to these conditions, you are permitted to work from home. Seek the consent. Then the employer will be.
I think issuing such a letter is a good idea. I think it's a good takeaway.
Because it's ordinance, obligations, government, employer, because any person to be punished, he should know his duty first. What are his obligations first? Without you educating the employee about his legal obligations or any such thing, imposing action is again difficult. And what are the permutations, combinations for work from home? Another thing is that, okay, not performing, not delivering the desired results while working in office, while working in the work from home. you generally put under the PIP, performance improvement plan. Give some time, counseling. Even after, you can take a disciplinary action. For that, there is a procedure laid out for it.
Right. I think, yeah, I have some questions, but I think they are overlapping questions. So in the interest of time, I'll switch to the audience questions now.
Yeah.
And we'll have to quickly see any things that are not already covered. Do labor laws applicable on IT organization? And please elaborate. I think we talked about it, you know.
Yes.
There are certain things ethical, certain legal and mandatory in context of IT. We talked about ethical a lot, you know, certain acts which we have to submit manual forms to government couldn't do it. I think manual forms in terms of employment, submitting to government, in the current situation, they are not able to submit. I'm assuming electronic versions can be submitted, right? I mean, I don't know what forms you are referring to here. You know.
Yeah, there is a government already granted exemption. You can make
exemption, I think, yeah. So force majeure, I don't know, it's a different question by itself. We are also having other discussions. Is force majeure applicable in such cases? Can force majeure clause be used to take any action against the employees? I think that's what it is. I think this is coming in terms of rentals and other things also. I don't know what opinion you have on this. Can a company say, if a company has do employment offers have force majeure clauses, and can I use that clause and terminate somebody?
No, it can't be said. It is a force majeure, not a force majeure having an impact on the business and not having the business. That is the reason you are terminating and where you are not able to provide work. The reason for all these things is the force majeure. Where you are not able to provide work, you have the option as per the provisions of law. By following the due process of law, you can lay them off or retrench them by following the provisions. That can, whether force majeure or even if not force majeure, if the company is not able to run for any reason also, they can do that.
Okay. Now there is a question, I think the answer seems obvious. If an employee does not want to work from home, even after being given an option, should we still pay that employee? So I guess what? I mean, if follows a process of giving a notice and other things. And
if he doesn't want to work from home and he has to be accommodated in the office, if he doesn't want to come to the office also, it is nothing but employee voluntarily wants to quit the employment.
Okay.
Can't be said that he should be treated as option security, he will not get the payment.
Yeah. I'm skipping some questions, and there are companies which have already cut salaries, variable pay. What about them? Plus some have started furlough even for Indian employees. So if somebody has done it already, what? So they'll have to face their own legal.
And they have to pay for their deeds, and what they follow is not the law. What is said in the law is law. And what they are following is the law.
Yeah.
It's not law.
Yeah. Then there are some questions around leave adjustment, which we have discussed.
Yes.
And then there is this screen keeps jumping. I can't hold it. What is our obligation as principal employer? I think we have talked about principal employer versus vendor. The question is around janitorial and housekeeping vendors. So we thought if it is a business contract, as per the contract terms, one can be terminated.
Yes.
And the vendor takes responsibility for the employees.
Yes.
You know, I think I'm representing sick leave applicability, earned leave encashment. I think you touched upon that.
Yes.
Sick leave can still be used by an employee even when working from home, I'm assuming, right?
Working from home, suppose he is not able to log in or work, for that he can apply that sick leave.
Yeah.
Yes, it can.
In case of performance issues, can we terminate employee? I think that due process has to be followed.
The due process has to be followed for the performance issues.
Yeah. Okay, can companies change their leave policy or other policies in the light of COVID-19 and say, this is my new policy, and as per this policy, you are out?
But the law stipulates leaves of the sick leave, earned leave, and casual leave under the Shops and Establishment Act, that you got to give it. Over and above that, if you are giving excess, the company is at liberty to change the policy. But the leaves that are envisaged under the law is mandatory, which we can't amend.
Okay.
And over and above that, the employer is giving any other leave in any form that can be changed or be amended.
Okay. I'm skipping some questions which are sounding like duplicates. Employees are working from home. What we'll do, I want to assure everyone, is we will again scan these questions, even if time doesn't permit today, and we'll see if there are any questions accidentally we miss out. We'll try to get answers and circulate them back. I hope that's okay, Mr. Murthy. So we'll try and cover everything. We still have time.
Yeah.
Can we put a hold on salary for rest of the duration of lockdown for those who are not able to work? They are not in city. They have gone to their hometowns. So laptop is broke down, and I think, yeah, I can see you are nodding very vigorously. So, yeah. Okay, can employees claim reimbursement for internet charges and electricity, etc. now that they are working from home? They pay Airtel something, and additional power consumption and stuff like that. Can they claim?
Nothing is written, nothing is agreed. It should be a win-win situation. Even if the employee where he is traveling with his own cost, he could save the travel time, and he could save the conveyance charges or whatever it is. He could save it, petrol, fuel expenses. He could save it that. And if at all the employee asks, it is between employer and employee. Law doesn't say anything so far to that effect. Whether the employer is liable for payment of the internet charges or the laptop repair charges or whatever it is. It is not. Law is not. Law is silent about it. It is between the employer and employee.
Okay. Performance grounds, PIP process, which is again has to follow the regular process.
Yeah, it has to have to follow the regular process.
I don't know. This question is a notification issued by MHA is constitutionally right. Can an employer reduce the salary during his
extended? Yeah, that is what now challenged in the court. The Supreme Court it is pending. We are seized with the Supreme Court matter is subsidized. Let us see and wait what the judgment that comes, depending on that. And till such time, whatever the terms and conditions that are imposed by the Ministry of Home Affairs in their GOs has to be complied with. And it is an obligation on the part of the employer to comply with it. It cannot be deferred. Suppose in the event anybody succeeds in the employee, the judgment is equally applicable to all the other employees, then the employers can think what to do with that for the wages paid and other things that can be discussed about.
Okay. There are a few employees who are underperformers, bad hires, but we could not take any action during COVID lockout. Can we take action against such employees, that is putting them in performance improvement program and go ahead with separation if performance? I'm assuming yes, they can go through the normal process.
During the lockdown period, they can only initiate discipline reaction. Discipline reaction initiates several processes, right from issuing the charge sheet to the conducting inquiry. Initiation of process, there is no bar, but removal only post-lockdown, they can do it by following the process. For the workman category. For the non-workman category, there is as per the contractual obligations that they can do it.
Okay. And there is a question about American-owned subsidiaries, a lot of them in Hyderabad, right? What we call as GICs or GCCs.
Yeah.
Do the laws apply equally to them, or do they come under any other separate?
Yeah, as long as they are in India, operating in India, law of the land prevail over their own laws.
Their own laws, right.
Undoubtedly, whether it is any company, that the law of the land has to be complied with.
There are a lot of things which we have discussed. A lot of clients who are asking for reduction of cost. Can we push that reduction back to employees? I think it all comes back to the same thing in one form or the other, which I think we discussed, okay. Can we revoke offers to prospective candidates? We discussed that, both lateral joinees and freshers, In one of the IT company, the bench resources are asked to exhaust their full leaves and only 50% salaries are paid till the business comes to normal in this scenario. But then you said the company has to face the legal consequences, right? I mean,
the thing is that even for one of the companies in the employment sector itself, normally the bench employment is quite common for the ITES industries. The problem is that mostly the appointment letters are being followed and from the others like cut-paste technology, if I am permitted to use that word. We have to incorporate new terms and conditions, new clauses, and we have to delete the negative covenants from the appointment letters which can never be enforced, but they're simply being carried in most of the appointment letter. I'm just sharing my experience where I go through several appointment letter, it is voluminous. Rather, out of that voluminous appointment letter, there are several conditions which cannot legally be enforced as per the judgments of the Supreme Court. That is why better to delete unwarranted clauses and incorporate warranted clauses which are not there. Let the appointment letter be luminous but not be voluminous, so that it would be useful to the employer. Like for this bench employment also, the minimum wage is the right guaranteed under the statute. Over and above minimum wage, there is no right, statutory right. In the appointment letter itself, the employer can put at the threshold that as long as you are in projects, this is the package. By owing to any reasons, if you are put on bench because of lack of project, your salary will be only this much. In the basic appointment letter itself, if you put such clause, during the bench period, you will get this much, and project period, you will get this much, you can do. Now, without doing so, you can't say now you are on bench because he has to be paid further until unless the employee comes forward and agrees for that. And there are certain companies to have a win-win situation, negotiating with the companies. They are negotiating, and where there is no lockdown in some of the countries, because I do follow certain of the global practices that are being accepted. They are saying that either the employer or simply terminating, he will give 3 months time for the employee to look for the employment. Till such 3 months time, leave is sanctioned. So that while in employment, negotiating and pursuing for employment is different. Rather, outer. Another some companies saying that for 3 months I will pay you 50%, another 3 months I will give you leave without pay or 25%. Some sufficient time, because for the employee, for him to rehabilitate himself, there is a scope. This is a human approach, basically, and win-win approach. And this human approach would put an end to the litigation. Because, and the employer also has to think about it. And these expenses, what you are putting by paying 50% or 25%, negotiating and arriving at a consensus, don't take it as an expenses. Otherwise, unilaterally, without winning over, if you impose and terminate him, if he goes to the court, the litigation expenses is much more than that. What these expenses? Because litigation is a speculation without knowing the destination. It is better to take care of, for that the employee also will have some facility, and it is a win-win situation.
Got it. I think there is a lot of learning from this pandemic, and I'm sure the future employment letters will look completely different with a lot of conditions. I think that one can clearly see, because some questions are also coming in the future offer letters. Can we do this? Can we do that? Now, one question, Mr. Murthy.
Yes.
It's there in the one now. Any allowances that are linked to employee working from the office premises, like conveyance allowance, like washing allowance, are coming by virtue of coming to the office, can those allowances not be paid for this duration? Because you are not coming to, there is no conveyance, there is no conveyance.
I got your point. Anything should be unambiguous. Any term and condition should be unambiguous, it should not be ambiguous. Like we discussed in the revision, when he said revision means it can be upwards or downwards. But like this, until unless it is specifically mentioned in the clause of the appointment, the conveyance shall be allowance shall be paid only when you come to the office, as long and during the period when you work from home, this is not applicable. Until unless it is specifically said, it can't be. Because most of the cases, let us be practical, what is happening in the industry. They negotiate CTC, they adjust under these allowances. They really don't meant it for the conveyance. Employee is given an understanding, your annual package is 6 lakhs or 10 lakhs, as against which this is paid under this head, this is paid under this head. Then the employee gives a complaint. And I don't know, Mr. Srini, when in our last session, somebody did raise incentive, whether the performance incentive, if he is not on our rolls, whether to pay or not, because he was there during the performance period. And later claiming incentive because he is not there because we don't pay. Then the employee says during the performance period I was there. But until unless you get, yes, the incentive is not only to motivate the employee to give the higher result, also to continue with the employment. Because no one would lose an employee who is a performer, who is a good talent. So they expect the incentive not only for the period what they have achieved, and also with the expectation they continue to achieve for the next year. So it should be in the appointment letter. The incentive is not only for the period of performance, it is also given expecting such results in the coming years. Therefore, the incentive shall be payable only when you continue on the roles of the company post performance while the payment of incentive is being paid. So everything should be unambiguous in the terms. Like Mr. Srini said now, in the future days, our problems are our lessons, all these things to be. We have to have a relook into the terms and conditions of the appointment. Contracts now, employment contracts.
A lot of questions about, again, principal employer and vendors, which I'm not touching. I think you covered that. If there is anything specific, we can see offline in case of a termination. Is the employer only bound to pay gratuity or service compensation for employees who do not qualify for gratuity, salary till the last working and unused earned leaves? I think. You want to address this? I think. In case of a termination, is the employer only bound to pay gratuity? I don't think here anything is linked to this pandemic situation. This seems to be general.
Gratuity must be paid. Gratuity cannot be adjusted. Gratuity
That's
cannot
a legal
be paid.
provision. Yeah. Barney, quickly, while we have 15 minutes, anything from you want to touch upon while I'm scrolling through the questions?
Well, I think, I just want to make this statement that, our intention here is to not kind of, look at any loopholes in the law to be able to, avoid any payments or anything that the employees deserve, because industry cannot survive without the employers and the employees. This is a very, very, as Mr. Murthy said, unprecedented situation, which nobody expected, impacting the world. And obviously, everybody needs to come together to help each other to be able to sustain this situation. So that is exactly the intent here. And again, we're not trying to interpret the law to the benefit of employers. That is absolutely not the intent. I just want to reiterate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Although the questions reflect the concerns, the position remains the same.
The employer also wantedly doesn't disturb. No one would cut his nose to straighten his face.
Yeah.
Normally maintains the balance, and this is the situation where one has to understand each other and move forward, and that has to be there.
Yeah, and like many people have raised in the Q&A window, and we as HYSIA are aware, some companies have gone ahead and done what they wanted to do, but are they on the right side of the law? Probably not. So they should be ready to take that risk. They are probably ready to take the risk, but they are not probably the models that everyone wants to follow. I think this session's purpose is to give the correct advice, no matter how difficult the situation is. I think, am I liable to pay my vendors? So we discussed that. Cap services. I think. Okay, now this is interesting. Now with the 33% being allowed to work back, if a company decides an employee is a critical resource and I want that person back in office, and no longer work from home, but that person is afraid and he refuses to come back to office and says, no, I don't want to come back to office, but the company insists that the person is required in office because of the nature of the job. What is the position? Can the refusal be shown as a reason to take some action, disciplinary action or something like that?
Yes, certainly, because when the lockdown is lifted, it is clear that people can move. Forget about the employee. People can move. Otherwise, lockdown would continue. And while lifting the lockdown, restrictions are imposed. Even for the employer to operate with the 33% or whatever it is, restrictions are imposed. And the employer is complying with that. As long as the employer is complying and he asks the employee to come and work, having his own apprehensions, he can't stay away. It is nothing but absence from duty. In such event, the employer is at liberty to act upon by taking necessary legal action.
Okay. And resigns and absconding from work. Can the employer terminate the employee? I think this again follows the normal legal process. I think, transport allowance, we discussed that. I think for coming to office.
As a pay package, it is given. If it is given specifically for that purpose, then it can.
that can be withdrawn, right?
Yeah,
For the
if
time they are not.
if it is specifically mentioned in the appointment letter, that can be subject to only reporting to the office, otherwise not entitled, then you can.
Yeah. Okay.
If it is given as part of the whole package, then.
Yeah. So I'm seeing pretty repeat questions. I think a lot of repeating questions, similar topic with very little variations. I think maybe people have posted because it's very difficult to see what someone else has posted. So that repetition is happening, yeah, I think I see again another question about refusal to come back to office. That fear is now, I think, coming up because it's a difficult choice for a manager also. If I'm a manager and I have 10 employees and I want 3 of them to come back to office, who are the 3, And I need to convince them that office is a safe place. You come back, no problem. We have all the sanitation measures, everything. But when I give all the assurances, still if one person refuses to come, then what are my options? And I want that guy in the office. So if he's refusing, so
refuse to come, and he can make a complaint if the employer is not implementing the conditions that are imposed by the government for running the office. But he cannot refuse to come.
Yeah.
And while commuting the office also, he has to take necessary precautions. Even the employer also to educate and bring awareness to the employees. What are the precautions he has to take while reporting duty, while on duty? What are the things that he has to follow post-COVID? And what are the conditions that are imposed by the government? Also, the awareness has to be created to the employees. What they got to do's and do nots. Awareness has to be created. That has to be done. And if he still refuses to work, then it is disobeying the lawful order.
Right. It's a violation of the employment contract.
If the employer doesn't comply any of the safety precautions, that he can make a complaint, but he cannot per se refuse to come and work.
Yeah. So I think I would stop here rather than just, I think we have covered pretty much everything, all the things in the Q&A window. I think there is a question that is repeated several times. Is something called furlough valid in India? Many people heard this term for the first time during this pandemic. At least as long as I never heard this term so much seriously in the past. So any quick answer to that?
The employer asking employee to go on leave and that is the thing without pay.
Without pay.
Yeah, that is not there.
Not there. Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah. So I think we are, one question is coming, condition in appointment letter, policies and procedures of the company will be changed from time to time. So can the employer make changes in the policies at this time and enforce some of the pay reduction or leave? So when the time to time, this time is also okay or this time is not okay, the pandemic time?
Yeah, good question. The thing is that, first of all, whatever is the law, the terms and conditions and the policies of the employee, the law supersedes the policies of the employee. The policies of the employee doesn't supersede law.
Okay.
So whatever the policies that they put it, that should be within the purview of the law. And as far as the changing is concerned, mostly the policies, they say that employees handbook, do's and do nots. Generally, they say handbook in the mention in the appointment letter, no handbook is served to those people, nor at least e-copy is circulated to them seeking their consent. So earlier for the original policy, had the employee given consent, now they want to change, they got to again say. Anything unilateral is cannot be imposed, and mutual and reciprocal can always be imposed, whether this time, that time, or any time.
Barney, yes, Barney. Yeah.
Actually, one of the question comes from our MC member. So he's asking, some employees who are working at client places have traveled to their native places and they're unable to work as company, cannot provide a secure line to them. What shall be the stand of the employer? How about the salary obligation? They went to the native place without employer's conveyance, a consensus rather.
Consent, basically.
Yeah. I got your point, the query, Mr. Varga. What he means to say that the employees left to native place even prior to this COVID. They are caught up over there. They don't have the necessary infrastructure to work from home under those circumstances, and they did not even seek the permission from the employer to go to native place, whether that employee need to be paid or not. is the question by the, that is the question. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. As far as this is concerned, whether that employee during the lockdown period only, he would be held up the moment lockdown period is over, he has to come and report that, that is. Another thing is that where he has held up, where he is not able to work, and IT industries are exempted even during this lockdown period. As far as the working is concerned, work from home and other things are concerned, there is certain exemption. If he is not working, you got to make. If he leaves, usually he applies for a leave for 1 week, goes there stuck up, then he has to extend his leave. Then even without leave, he goes for a weekend, goes there and stuck up over there. And he is willing, but the circumstances are such where he is not able to. He has to be treated. And suppose all the employees in the organization are working, only he is not working, then you can treat him as an absence.
Right. So,
Murthy Garu, there is
Yes.
one important question. I thought that if you touch on that, can you explain the Supreme Court judgment under Payment of Wages Act as per MHA guidelines?
No, they are challenged because it's that the employers, it's beyond employers' capacity, and neither provisions of Epidemics Act nor the provisions of the Disaster Management Act casts any legal obligation on the part of the employer to pay wages during the lockdown period, and they did not dealt anything in respect of the lockdown. It is the liability that is casted upon by the employer, by the government, using the provisions of the Disaster Management Act and Epidemic Diseases Act, which is not maintainable. The DIVO is per se in violation of the provisions of the Epidemics Act, and that is what several grounds they have taken it. They in fact sought an interim direction from the Supreme Court, at least subject to payment of 50%, the GOs be suspended, but Supreme Court declined to grant any interim order. They ordered notice and posted it after 2 weeks, and we have to wait and see that there are 3 or 4 employees organizations so far. Equally, the employees representatives is also approached the court. They filed a counter SLP stating that there are certain companies, as now we got the queries during the session, that they have unilaterally removed certain people, not paid the wages, come what it may, whatever. Seeking a direction to such employees to pay the full wages, not to remove. They have also filed a counter writ petition that is also pending. Both are tagged, and now we have to see what the Supreme Court decides. Depending on the outcome of the Supreme Court, we have to think about it.
Thank
But
you.
law as of now, but of late there is a problem. What it comes is that the news, they'll be giving some heading, and some people only end up in reading the heading and coming to a conclusion. And again, the content is something else. Perhaps the report might not have not properly reported as envisaged what is mentioned in the judgment. Another thing is that there are certain advocates who have me. They participate. Some of the people, they listen to the opinion and say that they take it opinion as a judgment. I came across recently a query from one of my clients. Sir, you said like that you got to pay full wages. I had one Supreme Court case, advocate, he addressed in webinar. Then when I heard it fully, what he said that these are the contentions I have taken before the Supreme Court. But what they are presuming is Supreme Court said so. If he says, no, GO need not be followed, what he said. He said it is the contention. If it need not be followed, why to challenge? He would not have filed the case at all. No? So it is all certain myths and in their assumption. But GOs are binding until and unless suspended by the Supreme Court or crashed by the Supreme Court.
One last question, maybe, considering that we have about 5 minutes.
Yes.
There is from time to time this question about the Shops and Establishment Act, and at least in our state, Telangana, and its applicability to our industry and the exemptions. And with today's headline also, that keeps coming up again and again. Can you please give us a small summary of the S&D Act and its applicability to IT industry as it stands today? What is exempted, where it is coming under the Act?
When it was a combined state, it is AP Shops and Establishment Act. After bifurcation, it is Telangana Shops and Establishment Act. By and large, except issuing certain GOs, the provisions remain the same without much changes or amendments to it. that is one as shops and commercial establishment. Means shops are the things where the things are stored and kept for sale. And the sale can be service, sale can be the goods. Here is a service. It is a concept selling, service selling, goods selling. And it is a commercial establishment. IT, ITES industries falls under the commercial establishment as defined under the Shops and Establishment Act. Therefore, the Shops and Establishment Act is applicable. But initially, when the IT industries have started, certain benefits were given in respect of service conditions, even including termination and other things for the industry to survive. And subsequently, that exemptions were carried, given by virtue of the executive order, not by way of a legislation, because under the rule-making power under the concerned enactment, the executives are conferred powers with making such rules as are necessary from time to time. Under that, the GOs issued, they have granted certain exemption from certain of the provisions, not per se from whole act itself. But there is a myth that they say that the labor laws are not applicable or the Shops and Establishment. But when it comes to this IT industries, as per as the service conditions, the Shops and Establishment Act is applicable. By the same time, the Industrial Dispute Act is also applicable. An employee under IT ITES industries is also an employee under Shops Act, is also a workman under the Industrial Dispute Act. There is a judgment of the Supreme Court where for a particular establishment, more than one act applicable, the remedy is available under two concurrent remedies are available under two different acts. The employee can avail only one remedy under one act and he can't seek both remedies under both the acts. So the Shops and Establishment Act is applicable. However, the government Shops Act is purely a state act. It is enacted and implemented by the state. Central is nothing to do. ID Act is the central act and it is in the concurrent list. Wherever certain amendments to be brought, it can be brought by the state also. So the thing is that the government is empowered to exempt from the applicability of some of the provisions or whole provisions of the Act. Until unless the government exempts in writing, not from certain provisions like section 21, 22 or 15 or 12. It is the whole Act also, government is conferred with the power. That has to be decided by the government, keeping in mind the interest of employer and employee.
So I know Srini said that is the last question, but I have a very interesting one here, which says working from home has become a 24 hours working to answer to employer. What is the legal hours of work at home?
I wish we had an answer to that.
There can be another question also, madam, that is not an issue because the learning process is a journey, not a destination. Okay.
So we need to have from legal, we need to move to a philosophy session, maybe. You know. I think we have reached the end of the time to respect the time.
I just finished this question, what you have put it. Let it be an accomplishment rather completion. There is a difference between accomplishment and completion. So by answering your question, I would be accomplishing, right? The question is that even working from home also, the working hours only 8. It cannot be stretched 9 for that matter because you work for 5 days a week. It cannot be stretched 24 into 7 into 365. There is again it is only the comedy. Working from home is different. Working at home is different. That work at home cannot be included in working from home.
So can the employees seriously demand any overtime? People in that kind of a junior employees who...
What the law says is that as per the Shops and Establishment Act, if any employee works more than 9 hours a day and 48 hours in a week, he is entitled for the overtime. Here, mostly think that they are working for 5 days at the rate of 9 hours a day and it comes to 45 hours. So still I have 3 hours. At the 3 hours I can. But if he is working beyond 9 hours, they have put both. It has to be read together. If he works beyond 9 hours, he is entitled for the overtime at the rate of double the ordinary wages. Now I think the Madhya Pradesh or Gujarat government, because there is a restriction on overtime also, should not cross more than certain hours in a quarter. Gujarat government relaxed it, employee can work for 12 hours now in the recent past. And you have this COVID situation, subject to payment of overtime. That is.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Murthy. I think truly a pleasure having you with us. Bharani, any closing comments from you? And thanks to the audience. I can see 218 questions in the Q&A window. I know that reflects the kind of anxiety and situation on the ground. But it's like many questions probably have all standard answers. We're not the answers we are hoping to hear probably. So no wishful thinking possible. Yes. So thank you, Bharani. Over to you to just close this. Yeah.
Basically, looking at the questions, you could certainly understand the anxiety in the industry about what's happening with the employees and the retention and the contracts and all that stuff. So I think it's a temporary phase that we are going through. The ICA as an industry body, our request to the companies is that yes, there is difficulty together. We'll certainly try to work with government and see how much we can try and get any kind of a relief or relaxation there. That we will try. At the same time, let's also be kind of compassionate towards employees and their lives, because end of the day, right, their lives are also very important, not at the cost of the business as well. But please do consider wherever it's possible, feasible. That's a request from us. And I think if the impact of the whole program today, I could see so much of feedback, positive feedback coming in the question and answer window and chat window. So I think it's a successful program. Thank you very much for all the insightful, updates from you, Mr. Murthy Garu, and you do it in a very lighter manner. And I'm sure it is a serious topic, but you combining with that, lighter sense really makes it much more exciting. Thank you very much, and thanks to the participants who did a phenomenal job asking a lot of questions. Thanks, Srini.
Thank you. The only regret we have from HYSIA is if it is a physical venue, we could always present our guests with a memento. As a tradition we have always done. There's no way digitally we can do this.
There is a extension of the mementos. No
So we will accumulate and give it to you, sir, when we meet. The lockdown is going to end one day. So thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bharani and Mr. Srini.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Srini.
Thanks, Nirja.
Thank you, Nirja.
Can we say now?
Yes.
Yeah. We are doing a recording of this anyway. We will share the link. Yeah.
Thank you.
Virtual claps. Somebody said virtual claps. Very nice. So there are a lot of thank you messages, Murthy Garu.
Thanks, thanks a lot. My pleasure. Okay, Mr. Srini.
Right. Thank you.
Right, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.